Welcome to the Xplainer. Today, we're going to totally skip the science fiction movies, the wild internet rumors, and all of that noise. Instead, we're actually going to peel back the real, documented history of what went down out in the Nevada desert at Groom Lake. It's a fascinating story, so let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because to truly understand this place, we have to start with a massive, and I mean massive, mystery. Imagine it's the summer of 1955. Out of nowhere, commercial airline pilots and just regular folks on the ground start reporting these bizarre, high-altitude, unidentified flying objects soaring over the Nevada desert. These reports were entirely real, and they caused an absolute media frenzy. So you have to ask yourself, why did UFO sightings suddenly spike right then and there? What in the world was actually going on up in the sky?
Well, to solve that mystery, we actually have to step back a few years and look halfway across the world. In the early 1950s, the Cold War was seriously heating up, and the United States had a major intelligence problem on its hands. U.S. planes were actively conducting reconnaissance missions over the Soviet Union, just trying to see what military capabilities they were building up. But here was the catch. These U.S. planes were flying at relatively low altitudes. This created constant, literally terrifying worries among military officials that American pilots would be spotted by Soviet radar and shot right out of the sky. They desperately needed a new kind of asset, eyes in the sky that the enemy simply couldn't touch.
And it is wild to look at how fast the government moved to solve this problem, inadvertently birthing a multi-decade secret in the process. In 1954, President Eisenhower authorizes a brand new aerospace program. Fast forward just one single year to 1955, testing begins, and boom, those UFO sightings I just mentioned suddenly erupt all over the place. The testing for this specific early project actually wraps up in the late 1950s, but the U.S. government decides to maintain absolute, total silence about the facility itself. In fact, they kept it under wraps for so long that it wasn't until 2013 that CIA reports were finally declassified, officially acknowledging the site.
So what exactly was that pivotal 1954 program? It was dubbed Project Aquatone. This was a highly classified initiative explicitly authorized by the president to develop a revolutionary high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft. They wanted a plane that could fly so incredibly high that no enemy radar could properly track it. Actually, scratch that. They wanted something completely untouchable by surface-to-air missiles too. But here is the massive logistical catch. You can't exactly build and test a revolutionary, top-secret spy plane at your local municipal airport, right? Pulling this off required a highly remote, incredibly secure location that was totally hidden from civilians and, most critically, completely hidden from foreign spies.
The vast, punishing Nevada desert fit the bill perfectly. Officials scouted out a location situated near a sprawling, bone-dry salt flat known as Groom Lake. Now, what made this particular spot so absolutely ideal for Project Aquatone was that it was already familiar territory for the U.S. military. It had previously served as an aerial gunnery range during World War II. It was perfectly flat for runways, incredibly desolate, and entirely cut off from the prying eyes of the outside world. It was like a ready-made secret fortress.
We know it as Groom Lake, but the public obviously knows it by a much more famous moniker. So where did the name Area 51 actually come from? While no one knows the official origin with absolute 100% certainty, the prevailing theory among historians is almost painfully practical. The Atomic Energy Commission had divided the nearby Nevada nuclear test site into designated, numbered grid areas just for mapping and administrative purposes. It's highly likely this adjacent parcel of land was simply designated on a map as Area 51. Yep, the most mysterious military base on Earth, brought to you by basic administrative paperwork.
Right. Let's jump back to that crazy summer of 1955, back to our initial Nevada mystery. In that summer, the Air Force finally begins testing the incredible aircraft born from Project Aquatone, the legendary U-2 spy plane. And suddenly, all the puzzle pieces fall perfectly into place. That massive aha moment? Those huge spikes in UFO sightings we talked about earlier weren't visitors from another galaxy at all. They were just the brand new U-2 planes taking flight for the very first time.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why experienced commercial pilots were so unbelievably confused. To put this into perspective, back in the 1950s, normal commercial airliners were puttering along right around the 15,000-foot range. Even the absolute most advanced military aircraft of the day topped out around 40,000 feet. But the new U-2, it could cruise higher than 60,000 feet. I mean, it was flying way, way above anything else humanity had ever put in the sky.
I mean, literally put yourself in the shoes of a commercial airline pilot in 1955. You're cruising along at 15,000 feet, you casually glance up out of your cockpit window, and way above you, you see this tiny metallic speck catching the reflection of the sun, flying at an impossible altitude. You would have absolutely no context for what that was. Naturally, these bewildered pilots would immediately radio air traffic control to let them know someone or something was way out there. This completely inadvertent chain of events is exactly what ignited the massive UFO legend we all know today.
Now, of course, the Air Force officials on the ground knew exactly what was going on. They knew perfectly well that those reported UFOs were just their top-secret U-2 tests. But they couldn't exactly come clean to the American public because that would mean basically handing the Soviet Union a brochure about their new spy plane. So they had to craft a cover story. They officially explained the strange sightings away by telling the public they were simply witnessing natural phenomena and high-altitude weather research. Right, just some casual high-altitude weather. Absolutely nothing to see here, folks. It was just a highly convenient excuse to shut down the rumors and maintain national security.
The initial testing of the U-2 aircraft eventually wrapped up in the late 1950s, but Groom Lake was far from finished. In fact, it proved to be so useful that it continued to serve as the premier testing ground for a whole new generation of advanced, highly classified aircraft. Over the following decades, this incredibly remote salt flat birthed some of the most unique aviation technology in human history. We're talking game changers like the F-117A Nighthawk stealth bomber, the incredible A-12 reconnaissance plane, and the highly experimental stealth aircraft known as Tacit Blue.
Okay, here is a number that is just staggering when you really think about it. 2013. Think about that for a second. Despite literally decades of pop culture obsession, blockbuster movies, and endless conspiracy theories regarding what was hidden out there in the Nevada desert, the US government stubbornly refused to even publicly acknowledge the base's existence. It wasn't until the year 2013, which is incredibly recent, with the official release of declassified CIA reports, that they finally admitted on paper that Area 51 was a real, operational facility.
But, this story of Groom Lake isn't just some Cold War relic of the past. There's a fascinating modern-day detail happening right out in the open today. If you are ever at the commercial airport in Las Vegas, keep an eye out for a specific, fenced-off terminal area. You might just spot a fleet of small, completely unmarked passenger planes parked there. And no, these aren't for VIP tourists. These unmarked planes are exactly how modern-day Area 51 employees secretly commute to work every single day from their normal suburban homes in Vegas, literally hiding in plain sight.
Which brings us to our final and, frankly, most provocative question. What exactly is Area 51 up to today? The U-2, the A-12, the stealth bombers of the past, those are all declassified history now. But Groom Lake remains a highly active, incredibly secure testing facility right this very second. What new, unimaginably advanced aerospace technologies are currently taking flight from that dry salt flat? Well, we may not know the real answer to that for another 60 years. Thank you so much for joining me on this Xplainer. I really hope this helped clear up the incredible true history behind the mystery of Groom Lake. Keep questioning and keep learning.